Good morning. Thank you for joining me for today's Facebook Live. My name is Tracy Held. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Melbourne, in Australia, and this is the card that we're going to be making today. And yes, I know, once again, I've used the new Horizons DSP. I tried really hard to use something else, but I just couldn't. It just works so beautifully with everything. I couldn't get away from it, and I am going to be ordering another pack in my next order because it's getting a little bit low. Aside from the paper, let's see what other products we're using today. I'm using the Let's Set Sail stamp set, and it has a coordinating punch. I can't remember what it's called. It might be the sailing ship builder or the ship builder, or it's something I can't remember. Sorry about that. Obviously, we've got the paper. I'm using some of the Waves Basic rhinestones, or rhinestone Waves Basic jewels. These are lovely. You've got those green and blue tones, and they're only available up until the end of April. So if you want some of those, make sure that you order them. I'm also using the birds from the On the Horizon stamp set, and I'm changing up the colors slightly. This one I used Misty Blue because I'm going to use a different piece of DSP. I'm going to use Evening Evergreen. So the ink pads that I'm using, I'm going to use Basic Grey, Pale Papaya, Evening Evergreen, and of course my Memento. Okay, so I will have all the measurements in the description because I need to think about what some of those inch measurements are. But let's get started. Now, for your card base, I've got my sheet of paper that's cut in half, and I'm just going to score it in the middle. So it would be 14.9 centimeters. If you're working in inches, you're going to use your 5.5 inches. Nothing complicated there. This is quite a simple fold, but it's really effective. Now, I could score that piece, but particularly when I'm working with centimeters, it does make it very, working with a 0.5 millimeter, which I really don't like doing. So it's going to be easier to just fold it. And I just want to grab a bone folder because we're going to need that. So we're just going to fold that back and trying to get it accurate. And that makes our fold. Now, for that card, I used that piece of the DSP. Oops, sorry, I just bumped my camera. And you can see that what I did is I actually cut it down over there because I wanted to have more of the water in the sky. So I've got that strip, which is very pretty, that I can use for something else. Otherwise, you've got the splotchy bits on the back of that one. For the card today, I'm going to use this piece, and the way that I've cut it is, we can put that, don't know, does that help? No, not really. Okay, so I've cut a bit off at the top where it's mostly white, and I've cut some of that off at the bottom. So I've got different strips with the way that that one's cut. Okay, so you are going to need three bits. So you need to use 2 pieces of DSP to make this card. You will have some left over, but unfortunately with a 6 by 6 inch, it doesn't work with just one piece of paper. but that's okay because then you have leftovers to make another one. Let's quickly, I'm not going to do my stamping yet. I'm going to do my stamping once, when I say my stamping, I mean my bird stamping, once I've actually got my sailboat in place. So let me give you a tip for the sailboat. If you're doing your sails and you're going to use the same color, what you can do is take any scrap piece of paper and punch it out. Okay. Then what we're going to do is take the sails and lay them down that they're sitting inside your punch out. And just remember that when you punch it, it does have a little bit of white around the edge or whatever color you've got. So it's not going to be sitting against it exactly. So just give yourself that space. And hopefully I haven't moved that too much. And then just pop your block over. Okay, so those are now positioned exactly where you want them to go. Now for this, I'm not putting my boat part in between. You can tell I'm really not very good with boats and technology with boats, but I'm not putting the actual boat bit in between because I'm going to stamp it in a different color. So that's going to make it a bit more difficult. So all that I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp my sails. And now, if everything goes according to plan, and it's not going to because I should have stamped on the other side, but we can make that work. I can just slot that in. Would have been easier with a bigger piece of paper, but and my stamping will now line up with my punch. So that I can get both pieces at once. It looks like I shifted that one slightly, but I'm going to be okay with that. We'll just trim the bottom down. I obviously didn't line it up as well as I thought I did, but that's going to be okay. And I'm going to stamp my boat in the grey, and that's not going to be big enough. There we go. Lucky I've got bits of paper everywhere. And we'll just punch that out. Okay, and just make sure that you know where your pieces are because they do jump around and you don't want to lose them. Right, okay, now we can start assembling. So let's do our boat bit first. So once again, I'm using my layering circles. I don't think I could survive without these, so thank goodness those are still in the catalogue. They haven't been retired because that would have been a tragedy. So I've cut out one in Evening Evergreen, and I've cut this out, but what I just wanted to show you here is I've positioned that roughly in the middle so that when I've got my paper laid down, I'm going to be able to carry on with the same kind of coloring. All right, so let's I was using glue a second ago and it's disappeared. Okay, hopefully there's enough in here, otherwise I'll grab another one. None of the glue wants to work for me today. Right. Now, the nice thing about working in circles is you don't have to worry about how anything's orientated because you can turn the circle to whichever way is straight. So that works really well for me when I can never get anything straight. And I'm going to take, I just want to see which way my seam's going right. So I've got a piece of the DSP here which is half the size of my card insert, and we're going to stick that onto my insert. I know that I'm working a bit opposite to what I normally do. I normally do all my stamping, then my sticking, then but sometimes it just means that you have to work in a different order just because it then makes it easier for you when you're doing your card, and that's what's happening here. So I want that stuck first, and then I'm going to stick my insert into my card. There we go. Now I'm going to stick one piece over there, and that piece is going to go over there. Okay, so just be careful with the second piece because you're actually sticking that on what you would normally think about as an inside fold of the card. When it's folded up, you're not going to see that. So just be careful. I think that could get a little bit confusing because it's not the way that you're normally thinking about it, but you'll see now when I fold it up, or let's just stick this and I'll show you on the other one, that it actually does make sense. There we go. So when we open up the card, it's like that. You've got the whole scene of the DSP, or so that's what's going to fold up like that. And you can see here it's not exactly the same, but it's roughly, that's carrying on from there. So you've got, it looks like your seam's carrying on over there. Right, now, and this was where I wanted to just have this stuck first so that I could see how I'm going to do this. So that we're going to position that it's roughly over there. Okay, so I'm carrying on my seam across the two. So let's put our sailboat on now that we know which way we want that to go. And the good news is that the sailboat is going to be in the new annual catalogue. So if you love it, it's still going to be available. And it does work really, really well with the DSP, except that in my opinion this new Horizons DSP works really well with everything, but unfortunately we're not going to have that DSP, so I suggest that if you want some, you stock up on that before the end of the mini catalogue. Move that out the way so that you can see. So this sail goes over here, and that one goes there. So thanks, Rose. I'm happy that you like the card. but I almost feel bad taking credit because most of it is the DSP that just makes it so easy for us to get such beautiful results out. And that's the really nice thing with this DSP, is that you're sort of putting in not a whole heap of effort and you're getting so much extra out of it. Okay, so now we can stamp some birds. Now, when I did this one, I did use the single bird from the Waves of Inspiration stamp set, but for the live, I decided that I would use the birds from On the Horizon just because there's more of them in one stamp, so I could stamp a few more in one shot instead of just going 1-1. So we'll stamp some over there, and we'll stamp some more over there, and I'm going to stamp over here. This one's maybe I need to be a little bit more strategic, where we need to stamp half and half. So there we go. Now we've got lots of birds flying. I don't know what you all think, but for me it's just the most bizarre thing. But I think in some of these stamp sets, the birds are almost my favorite stamp. Right, now we're going to find some dimensionals, and it looks like, once again, my dimensionals are hiding from me, but here we go, I found some. Now be careful when you're sticking this on, because you only want to have your dimensionals on that side. I just want to give it a nice press with a bone folder to try and flatten that a little bit more. Obviously, once we've got that on, it will make it a bit heavier and it will get flattened in an envelope. So thinking about that, being careful. You want your dimensionals on this side. When I flip it over, it's that side, and kind of halfway. We don't want them going over because then it's going to stick our card closed. Okay. And like I said, I'm positioning this so that my scene in the paper is carrying through. That should do it. And yep, my dimensionals are where they're supposed to be. And then once again, I've stamped my sentiment and I've die cut it and die cut its matte, so we can just stick that on top. And isn't it funny how same card but just changing up the DSP and the colors gives it a completely different look. So this DSP is amazing because I did a class using some of it the other day, and at the end of it everybody was ordering this DSP. And like I say, every week I sit down to do my lives and I think, oh no, I'm using the same DSP again. You're going to think that I've got no other DSP. This is the only thing in my craft room. But no, I have tons of other DSP, but every time I reach for anything, that one just comes to hand. Right, so we're going to pop that on. And I'm going to use a couple of, not quite sure, I think that these are Coastal Cabana. So I'm going to just use some of those. It's not quite the same green, but I don't think that that really matters. It just gives it that bit of bling and sparkle. All right, so there we go. 2 cards, just changing up the DSP. And remember, as you cut the DSP, like here where I'm cutting it to size, I'm cutting off some of it, so that gives us a different look as well, depending on which piece of the DSP you use. So same card, but they look totally different. The only difference is the coloring, and of course I used the different birds. So There we go. That's what they look like opened. I think that they're quite fun. Like I said, I can't get enough of this DSP. So thank you for joining me. I appreciate you watching. I hope that you have fun playing with your DSP. And I will be back again next week, Sunday. Have a good week. Bye.